Welcome to Inner Voice of Knowing podcast. I'm Kaye, a shamanic leadership coach and healer, guiding you through life with a foot in both worlds. When you understand the terrain of the inner landscapes, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic, you will become the leader within your physical life, both personally and professionally. After all, the power of change is in your hands. Let's get this journey started. Welcome back to Inner Voice of Knowing. I'm absolutely thrilled to have an amazing guest and a good friend of mine, Cath Sutherland.
Hi, Kaye. Great to be here.
Oh my God, I'm really looking forward to this. I met you, it must be like because it was before COVID.
I know.
It's and like 4 or 5 years ago or something.
COVID's
crazy.
like a big black hole. You just lose time.
Yeah. And I went to an event that you had and found out about your book that you wrote 13 years ago called Conscious Business.
Creating Brand Energy.
Yeah. Never heard anything. I'm getting chills now as I talk to you. Never heard anything like it before. And I knew at the end of it that I had to work with you. And I knew that I couldn't do the group coaching, the group program. I had to do the one-on-one, which was
a leap of faith.
It was. I think I rang you a couple of times, but I already knew. I already had the knowing when I was in that event. And there was a part of me going, oh, shit, like I'm excited, but that fear that comes in when big change is going to happen. And big change certainly happened. But what was amazing for me was that you'd written this 13 years ago when certainly those concepts, I suppose, in the spiritual community were around, not as strong as now. But in business, it was not heard of.
It was very far out Brussels sprout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And didn't someone say to you to change the name of the book?
Well, I studied energy therapy for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was studying energy therapy. I'm a business facilitator. So during the week, I was facilitating businesses through their business and marketing plans. And on the weekend, I was studying energy therapy. And one weekend I was sitting there in class and I thought, I wonder what will happen if I use these ancient energy principles and apply them to business.
Wow.
And when I did, everything just fell into place and everything made sense.
Yeah.
So from that, I created a model, which I facilitate with businesses today. And I wrote my book, Creating Brand Energy, out of that. And the end of that process is you become more aware of who you are as a business or who you are as an individual.
Oh, my God, yes.
And, so you become more conscious. So I called my business Conscious Business, and I registered that in 2008. And I had a friend who was in advertising, and he said, Cath, you can't call yourself Conscious Business. It's too hippie la. It's too far out Brussels sprout. It's too incense waving. Like this is just, don't do it.
Were you aware of anyone else that was sort of bringing this into business?
Not really. Not at the time. Not at the time. There were people talking about love in business, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a book called Love Marks, and Kevin Roberts, he's the worldwide CEO of Saatchi & Saatchi, and he said when a brand has high love, it's not a brand anymore. High love and high respect, it's not a brand anymore. It becomes a love mark. And so he brought the word, he worked with major corporations around the world. So he started bringing the word love into business, which was far out Brussels sprout back then.
That's a big leap, isn't it?
Yeah. So I thought, great. Well, at least we're getting, that relationship of love and respect into business. So I leveraged off him and his work, just bringing him saying, this isn't too far out Brussels sprout.
Yeah.
But the actual name Conscious Business, I said to my friend who was in advertising, I said, look, you do become more aware of who you are and conscious at the end of this process. So I'm going to stick with conscious business because I'm too lazy to change it. I don't want to start off as one business name here and then change it. And conscious business as a company name was available on, in Australia. And I thought, wow, that's fantastic. I'm going to go with it.
Was it like a knowing? You just knew that it had to be this, so I'm going to stand my ground with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm there. Yeah, it was the deepest name I could think of, it was just the end of the process. And I did think, it's saying something to say you're conscious, because who's really conscious? No one's really conscious, but you become more conscious when you go through this process. I mean, that's what the whole journey of life is about, isn't it? Raising your consciousness and becoming more conscious as a human being. We've all got things that get in our way and distract us, and our perception box and things but the idea is the more you delve into who you are and what's aligned with you, the more conscious you become, the truer you live your life, the truer that you can be in business. And then you're ramping up your frequency, your energy, and you attract like energy. So then you get into the flow of life.
And that's true leadership, like leading ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we need to bring into business as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything starts from an inner journey out. Everything starts on the inside. Everything. I'm reading a book by Sadhguru at the moment, and he said, your eyes refract the light back in. So what you're seeing, you're actually seeing it on the inside as well. So everything we perceive is from the inside, and we get external cues. Mm-hmm. But the only control and real, I don't know, the only real place of home is the inner world and the inside.
I am so aligned with that. And it's interesting that you needed to hesitate, because I was interviewed on a podcast the other week, and it took a whole different turn than the way I thought it would go. But I love that. And doing that deep conversation, but I had to say, it's going to be very hard to find some words to truly explain with limited words compared to the truth of what really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the more you can dive in and know yourself, your true self, your inner self, then the more directorship you have of your external world. I just binge listened to all your podcasts
because you've been walking the Camino.
I've just finished walking the Camino for the second time, and I was saying to you that one of the big lessons that I learned was about responsibility, and that being the youngest of six and being a team player, I've always felt responsible for other people in the team. And this one, I gave very clear instructions. A group of people came with us, and I said, you're on your own. This is your individual journey. We all need to be responsible for ourselves. Yep. And, we're adults, we're big people, let's do this. And it was just interesting when people got into hardship or stress, how they wanted to divert the responsibility to someone else. And
interesting to be the observer, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a good lesson for me, because I found that I didn't jump in and help. I said, help's available if you want it, if you ask for it, but I'm not going to proactively. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing around responsibility is that you're response able. So doing the inner work makes you able to respond in the best way possible to your external world.
Yeah.
So responsibility comes from, being response able. So the more you know yourself and the more you're solid and sit in who you are as a person, as a business, and everything's aligned and you're in that flow state and you understand your values, your purpose, your greater global vision, you understand your character and the qualities that are aligned with you, the more that you stay true to you, the more you will attract that into your life, but also they're your guide for everything you respond to. And when you're consistent in that, people get to know you, they come to love and respect you because they know that you're consistent in that.
And then business and teams work more harmoniously.
Yeah. Because a lot of these elements and these ideas are subjective in business.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we just do it this way. And, your expectations might be completely different to my expectations. Yeah. But if we name them through values, if we name them through this is our intention for our client, this is our intention for our suppliers, this is our intention for our local community, this is our intention of how we work with the environment. If we understand, if we're really clear on all of our intentions, then you can work towards those intentions in your way, using your own personality, your skills, your individuality, your beautiful characteristics and qualities, and I can do it in my way. So everyone's getting the same input, but in authentic, genuine, different, rich ways.
I feel like it's, in one of my programs we address goals. And 3 different styles of goals and etc. But it's really about setting the soul goal, not the goal that comes from the head that might be influenced by other people, the outside world. And I feel like, when you say the word values, a lot of people go, I know what my values are. A lot of businesses, I know what my values are. And I know from when I was out in management, etc., the values up on the wall, and every day I think they're not being lived out.
Yeah,
they're not aligned with. No, why are they even up there?
Yeah.
So you're really talking about beyond all of that,
yes,
and really getting into the heart, and soul of what it is.
And that's what my process does. I ask really strange questions.
You do? I'm just sitting there and I remember you going and looking at me across the other side. Just trust. This will make sense in the end.
Yeah.
And isn't life like that?
Yeah.
Like you don't always make sense of like, why is this happening, or why am I having this experience, until you get further along and you're like,
yeah.
Okay.
And I think, with business, business facilitations, that's what I love. I love asking questions that people aren't prepared for. Because, a lot of times we ask, like if I ask, what are your values? You just go value shopping and go, I like this one. I'll have this one. Thanks.
Value
I like
shopping.
that
I love
one.
that.
I'll have this one. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Or, integrity. I like integrity, and there can be all sorts of suggestive, I could suggest things that you go, yep, I'll have that. And that's value shopping. Yeah. That's your left brain getting in the way. Yeah. And it's not your true self emerging out. So I ask very different questions where your left brain doesn't know where the hell this is going. So you answer truthfully because you're there, well, I'll just throw it out there.
But it makes it fun too. Yeah. Like you get sort of invested in it because it's like, I have to feel my way through this.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember having moments of almost that battle.
Yeah.
Like, how can the right answer? And then it's like, no, I've got to settle into this. And you guided me beautifully into it. But there was that element of, I've got to get this right.
Yeah. And we do that.
Yeah.
Our subconscious or our mind takes over, and we do that in so that's why you're saying, the goals, they're not in your head, they're in your heart.
Yeah.
But your head tries to get in the way and your ego gets in the way all the time. So if you can do a process that gets that out of the way and your true feelings come out and you don't know where it's going, so you can only answer truthfully.
Yeah.
And then what happens with all of these answers, the themes pop up of who you are, and then they keep popping up so many times because we do a really thorough process that you can't deny them. They're staring you in the face, and it can be quite fun. That's like, oh my God, there's that value of generosity again, or whatever your value might be.
And upon reflection, with some of mine that came out, I recognised that I've been saying, like, one of mine is, eclectic.
Yeah.
And every time people would come into my house, maybe it was almost apologetically or trying to explain, I'm very eclectic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I've got different things everywhere, but somehow it really works.
Yeah.
Same as in my healing room. But I was always going, I'm very eclectic. But so it's almost like I've been, subconsciously, unconsciously saying along the way what my values of who I am.
Yeah, exactly. But eclectics, if your left brain came in and you're in your business mind, eclectic's not a value.
That's not a value. Yeah.
But it is, because it describes how you do things. And
yes, and how I choose. Because you'd asked me about, restaurants and why. And it always came back to, supporting people in what they're building, but there was always an eclectic element to it that I was always drawn to and loved.
Yeah.
And that was just such an insightful process. So conscious in the name of your business, conscious business is so true, because I became conscious of truths, if you like, of who I am that were being spoken all the time, but I had no awareness of it.
And then the confidence to own that.
Well, it's like coming home, though, because it's so ingrained. And so what happens in businesses when you're working with different people? Did sometimes businesses go, these people aren't aligned, or the person goes and the team changes a bit because of that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, you were great, because you said, yep, this is me, I'm running with it, because you've done so much, personal work. I've had other one-on-one clients that have taken 18 months to test out these values, and then they do the full circle and they come back to what we did in, 6-8 week,
So from your perspective,
sessions.
What's the denial of that? What are they pushing back on?
Then it's them not feeling comfortable in being who they are in business, because what if someone rejects them?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But that's like life as well. So this must affect them personally as well as professionally, because the two are ingrained, really.
People have left their wives, people have left their business partners. In a group setting, what happens is I do this with the whole team. So it's a load of fun. There are no wrong answers. So it's a very safe environment, and it's lots of fun. Like I did it with I do it with businesses that are very left brain. I did it with an accounting firm, and they had a team of 20 people. And most of those people, it wasn't mandatory. So most of those people turned up for every session. And we had 10 2 to 3 hour sessions, taking them through the whole defining who they are and their brand energy elements, and then how they activated that in their business. We went through the activation of that as well. But a good time had by all. Then you get to the blueprint stage, and there were a few people in that group of people that just didn't feel comfortable. And even though it was fun, what they came out with was lovely.
But then it's putting it up.
And
do you reckon?
And they just didn't feel good in that energy. And even though it was a lovely energy, and it was, great and inclusive and everything, some people don't feel good in good energy.
It's unfamiliar. It's the other side of your current comfort zone.
Exactly.
And I know how to do this really well. Yeah. That might be true and authentic beyond all of that. Yeah. I call it the spider's web, because we get stuck in it. But I don't know how to do.
So even though it's great, some people don't feel great in great energy. So a couple of people
put up a tipping point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bring me back, bring me back.
Come on board. No. And so a couple of people in that team went to the manager and said, oh, look, I've found this other job. And he was going, oh, no, really? And these two people had, basically they were wondering about these people. They had targets on their they were wondering whether they were the right fit for the business. And going through this process, even though it was a great process, they self-elected to get out. And that's happened with a lot of businesses that I've worked with. The people that have had question marks around them, are they a fit for this culture, have self-elected, because even though it's a great culture, they haven't felt good. It's like some people believe, I've got to work hard to make it in business, and we can't have fun.
Yes, strive.
And all of that. Some people, and it's subconscious beliefs that they're not even aware of. But that's the thing with energy. If you create a really strong frequency or vibration around who you are and how you do things, you're going to attract the right people for you who are in that flow, and you're going to reject or boot out the people who don't feel familiar. So those people who could be toxic to your team or not the right fit, and just be, a jagged scratch on the blackboard, oh, really? Oh, really, Jane? Oh, really, Bob? they don't survive in that environment.
This is so powerful.
It's interesting.
And where it's been really anchoring for me is because I have to be on social media way more than I would personally choose. Coming back to my business, and it used to be networking events and business cards and brochures, and now it's like, you got to be on TikTok, you got to be on LinkedIn, you got to be here, you got to be and bombarded by people telling me that they can tell me or teach me how to do it. Right? In other words, become,
do this or be this,
somebody else,
and you'll have $1 million.
And it's just so uncomfortable because I'm so aware of energy, but I keep coming back to my blueprint.
Great.
And then going, noise out. Do you know what I mean?
Is it aligned or not?
Is it aligned? Is it not? Am I getting caught in something because it taps into, I need to do this to get there? And then it's like, well, no, I don't. And I find it really grounding and anchoring and encouraging to keep my authentic voice, because in a world that's becoming more and more saturated, I have unique ways of saying and expressing things. And someone once said to me,
which
but if you
is
made
a differentiation.
I know. Someone labelled it Kayeisms. And I'm like, great. I think John did in the movie. He said, oh, you're like Michael Beckwith, who was in the movie too. You have your own, isms. And I take ownership of that. But I did have a voice.
Compliment.
Going, well, maybe you need to make what you're communicating a little more relatable in the language. And I'm like, no, because my words are really clear, actually, even though they're different words that I'll use for different things. And the explanation, it's all really simple. And to me, it makes more sense than the other language. But the blueprint for me is again, it's that.
And your blueprint is your differentiator. So that accounting firm, for example, that I facilitate.
I'm not just in an accounting firm.
I've done law firms, I've done accounting firms, I've done, dress designers, tourism businesses, any business. It's great to find their, it's finding their true north, their compass, these guidelines of who they truly are as a collective or as individuals. But this accounting firm, they, their website was all accounting language. And when I went through their personality, their brand personality, who they were, all their, natural language, their real language came out, and they said, oh, we do, the bad stuff like death and wills, we do wealth creation stuff, we do, tax stuff, we do the boring stuff. And I'm there, great. So they've now used that terminology in their website, that if you need all your stuff done, all your figures and, all your accounting stuff that's boring, we do the boring stuff, we do compliance, we do all of this. So they're on their website. If I was
reading that or listening to that, I'd so relate.
You'd want to go with them.
I'd want to go with them.
But that's the thing. People come in and go, well, for your industry, you need to speak like this, and you need to sound professional, and you need to have this, and you need to have that. So there's all these accounting firms that people have copied and pasted,
sort of robotic, isn't it?
And pasted them on and changed the name. And then there you are. There's a very professional site for you. Off you go. And then all these corporate companies are going, but what's my differentiation? And it's like, your differentiation is who you are and how you are to people and how you'll deal with people, because no one is you. You are completely unique. So it's either you as an individual, like your business, or as an accounting firm. Who are we as a team? And who do we collectively agree and jump on board that, this value really, I love this value, I can live this value, I can integrate this value in how I do things, and these can be guidelines for how we do business, and I'm happy to be managed around these values. And our brand personality, I feel aligned with that, I can do that. And so if you are naturally as an individual aligned to what a team is, then you can, if you're having a bad day, you can go into work and get fueled up with the energy that you need, because you can self-actualize at work. And I think that's where a lot of
I love that. Hold on. self-actualize at work.
Yeah,
oh my
because
God,
you can live your values at work. You can, you can be who you are. You can be naturally who you are and your, eclectic personality, Kaye, at work, because we accept that here. And
so work can be a safe space to go and be yourself and contribute from who and how you are, but aligned and in complete vibrational resonance, if you like, with the whole.
But you can be individual and express integrity your way, and I'll express integrity my way. And an architect, for example, might think of integrity as, not telling the truth or being honest. They might think of integrity as integrity of design, where the pillar matches the nail or the screws that they put in. Or do you know what I mean? And that's the other thing that we've got to be really clear about is if these values emerge from your personality, and they emerge into themes, but then we've got to be really clear on what those values mean, because different people have different meanings for different values. I was just going
to say that because I've been to some of your presentations, I went and did mine where you present your blueprint. And, I've been to another one as well, which was interesting because Nicole, my previous guest, said, and she didn't talk to me when she decided to do the process. And I was so excited that she was for her brand and business. But you said you two are very similar. And then doesn't that make sense? Because
you're friends.
We get along so well.
You had a similar looking blueprint, just your colours and the way. Yeah, it was interesting.
But I've seen other people put up some values that in title are like mine. But the explanation of it
completely different.
Is quite different. And I can still relate to it. But and that's what I love, because it's not like I'll look up the word in the dictionary and this is what it means. It's really individualized.
And the values that I get businesses and people to develop are energetic values. They're not functional values. I think there are different types of values. Like we live in Western Australia and it's very mining heavy, and the mining companies have got safety, environmental sustainability, and profit to shareholders kind of values. And they say that, and it's like, well, that's basic. You should be doing that anyway.
But also not adhered to.
Your mind should be safe. And they should be environmentally sustainable. That's a functional value. But how are you going to be safe? Are you going to be caring? And how are you going to be caring? So it actually gives a how to create that safety, which is like a KPI or a functional goal. It's not a value. So I think some people get values mixed up. Values are and they have general meanings. So they, as a business, if I was to change business tomorrow, I could take my values with them and apply them. So your brand doesn't lose any of its equity if you pivot to a new business. Or, you can, because anything can happen. We've seen that with COVID and everything. Your external world can change on a dime. But the only, if you're true north to you,
that doesn't change.
It doesn't change. And you can stay strong. You don't get, flustered or blown apart by that because your inner center and grounding is who you are, and your internal world and your values and your brand person or your personality, your global vision, your greater intention for why you're here on this earth, your purpose, your intention for those that you serve, all that's true to you, and that's your blueprint, that's your guideline, and the value you offer others.
Well, it would be amazing also for staff retention.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't have staff, but where I notice it is in entering collaborations. When I start to see, because sometimes it takes time in relationships for it to, because people will say things, but then the actions, is it sort of aligned and backed up? And the minute I'm really aware my deepest values and how I move through this world and speak in this world and act in this world, they're not aligned. And then it's like retreat.
Which is perfect, because then you're not wasting time.
And it's backed up because my blueprint is it's the deepest part of who I am.
Yeah.
And
traditional business, we've been taught a lot of things that just don't make sense to me and don't make sense on an energetic level, like find out what your customers want and give them that. A lot of the time the customers don't know what they want. You look at fashion design, what people wear is outrageous because someone's saying, if you'd ask the customer, will you wear that? They'd go, oh, no way.
Yeah.
Until it becomes trendy.
Oh, it's the right thing to wear, or the right thing to say, or the right value.
Music, all of that kind of thing. So, there's many examples, many commercial examples out there of the customer, hating something and then loving it 2 years later. So if you're a leader in your field and you're doing what you love, you'll attract the right people to you. I mean, sure, it's got to be a viable business.
Yeah.
But, it's like what you're doing. You're sticking in your lane and you'll attract the right followers for you and the right coaching clients for you.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. I mean, I was asked years ago, Cath, I was facilitating a board of they used to fly me to Queensland to help facilitate these meetings because they were a board of scientists. They were soil agronomists. They were agronomists, soil scientists, and there were about 7 of them. And they used to want to get through their business strategy, but they'd get stuck in all the detail of their science and they didn't get anything done.
Yeah.
So I'd facilitate their business meetings. So one time I said, look, I'm going to take them through this process, and it's all about energy. And I said, Wayne, to one of the guys, what do you think? And he goes, oh, yeah, it sounds good, but can you take out the word energy everywhere? Because it's a bit hippie la. This is way back.
Yeah.
And I said, do you know what? No, I can't. He said, because I don't think Chris is going to get it and Chris will buck up and la. I'm like, no, let's just give it a go.
Yeah.
So I stood up there and gave it a go and went round, what did you think? Yeah, great. Chris, what did you think? Well, that's how everyone thinks, don't they?
Oh, I love that.
So sometimes the people you think who won't get it or aren't aligned, or there's no way that accountant will work on energy of their business, or that lawyer will think that this is relatable to them. You just don't know how people operate and where they're at.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is we're all human beings at the end of the day. That have put on masks and now becoming conscious and going, I need to peel these away.
Yeah.
Because I've got clients that come to me for my shamanic healing work.
Yeah.
Lawyers.
Yeah.
Other people that have come from other businesses that you might go, oh. But again, we forget because they're just labels. Yeah. And they're walking in with their masks on to function in that environment.
Yeah. And to be accepted in that professional environment, you've got to present in a certain way and have a certain language. Yeah.
Yeah, like me being told initially with my first coach, you've either got to be in leadership or you're spiritual, shamanic. And I'm like, I can't separate them because it's one from that spiritual shamanic sense of who I am and understanding energy, etc., that has empowered me in my life.
Yeah.
So
from that holistic thing. And just to go back on that a little bit, that comes back to our very first discussion about asking questions that people are ready for. If you ask the customer what they want, they'll give you the answer that they think you want.
Yes.
Not actually the true answer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you were to ask a lawyer, what do you want? Yeah, no, we need leadership staff and it needs to be this.
So how did you figure this process out, Cath? Because it is completely unique.
Yeah.
And very much your own in terms of, but how did you come up with, where do you think it came from?
I just used these structures in the study of energy. Yeah. And I thought, how does that apply to business? And I started transposing these different structures. And I was also, in a past life, I was a copywriter for radio and I'm very creative. So, and I like to have fun. I hate being bored.
So it's bringing all the threads together.
Yeah. Having that. Yeah. So, like understanding that we're all vibrations and everything is energy. That's number one. If there's one thing to leave everyone with, it's everything is energy. This table's energy, my physical body's energy, my spirit's energy. It's just vibrating at different frequencies.
And I'd love the listeners to take a moment and let that land, because I think all too often people are like, oh, yeah, everything's energy, but not living from letting it land, going, well, if everything is energy, then what?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That we can sometimes hear it just with the head and it's like bouncing off. Oh, yeah, sure. But everything is energy. And we were talking before we put on record about, I call it the inner universe, that exists first, and then we exist within the universe, which is a projection of what's actually going on inside of us coming out.
Yeah.
And other people go, oh, yeah, but are you living from that? Have you let that land and integrate and recognise what that really means?
Well, if you do recognise that everything's energy, it's really freeing. It's really freeing, I think. And then it's fun to find out what your unique frequency or energy is. And that's what my process helps businesses to define for themselves as individuals, as collectives. And then if you're activating that and integrating that into everything you do, you use your blueprint and you look at how you can activate that value when you answer the phone, or how you can activate that brand personality characteristic when you do this, or how you can talk about your global vision, which is your greater intent. If you could be the change you want to see in the world, what do you want to contribute to? And it doesn't have to relate to your business. So, you're putting out those intentions, and if you're living that, you'll magnetize that back to you.
Yeah.
So, your intentions is the call out, and then if you're living that, if you're feeling that, if you're integrating that, if it becomes part of your being, then you'll naturally magnetize that back to you. So, by understanding this and being grounded in this, you do have control of what happens to you.
Yeah.
And you can look at things and go, well, that didn't work. Well, obviously, because they're not aligned here, or they're not aligned there, or this wasn't aligned here. I just need to stay in my zone and stay in my flow. And like frequencies harmonize.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it's like an orchestra. We can have different parts of the orchestra, but like frequencies, like we can have different individuals in a team, but come together, and like frequencies harmonize, and like frequencies amplify.
Yeah.
So if we understand our unique energy, we activate that, we integrate that in everything we do, we be that, then we're going to attract the right frequencies to us. We're going to, like energy attracts, we're going to harmonize, we're going to be in harmony, we're going to amplify that. If there is disruptive frequencies in there, like someone in a violin plays a violin, that's destructive. And, the SAS has used the power of that in warfare. They've used sound to break windows and let the enemy thinks, there's only 6 of them and 40 of the enemy, and the enemy thinks, God, they've got all these bombs going off and like what's going on. They've been able to take over situations just by using disruptive frequencies. So it's understanding your frequency, and if you're feeling out of sorts, it's about, how do I come back to me?
Oh my God, Kath, so powerful. And the word flow is thrown out everywhere.
Yeah.
But having done this process, that is my flow when I am living, speaking, moving, doing business, doing life, really aligned with that.
Yeah.
That's my flow.
Yeah. And I did my vision board like 2 or 3 years ago. And because I took myself through this process, obviously.
So it is, sit there. So, Kath, and you ask the question, and then you sort of swap to the other side.
So I did. I was read Joe Dispenza, and he's got the vision movie. So I was doing a vision movie, but I also printed it out and put it all over my pin-up board as well. And I just did it, and then I realised, wow, every one of my values is represented there. There's explorative, there's spiritual, there's creative, there's playful, Yeah, there's natural, they're all there. Because I wanted to explore, I wanted spiritual explorations and travel.
Yeah.
I wanted, so your values, who you truly are from the depths, continually swirl about. But it's just getting that mind out of the way to go, oh no, that'd be better, or that's more appropriate for that industry, or I'll do this.
Yeah.
Because when the proverbial hits the fan, and I've also done this thing called the Amazing Values Challenge, where I take teams on this amazing race style event, where we test out their values.
Yeah.
And it's not until you're under pressure, you've got time pressures, or you're stressed, like a race. You're working with people you haven't worked with before. You're doing things you haven't done before. That's when your true you shines through. You revert back to who you truly are.
Yeah.
So if that's not encapsulated in your values, if you're pretending to be something, it's always going to come out in the end.
Truth will always reveal itself.
Especially when you're under stress and under a little pressure.
Absolutely. God, I think listeners are going to have to listen to this definitely more than once, because there's so much gold in here, and it's so powerful. And I see you, Cath, as a pioneer,
you.
And you're getting ready to, or you've been.
Business is very trendy now.
Yeah, but hey, 13 years ago, and you brought it into businesses.
I know.
That to me has an element of courage, because it just really wasn't the norm. And then you're working currently on a second book.
Yeah.
So it's going to be deeper and more expansive, and because the truth stays the same, the truth, but it just deepens and expands.
Yeah.
And in that elevates.
Well, this is more on the activation of who you are, because as you said, we can't have values just on the wall. We've got to look at, well, how would you activate that value, Kaye, in what you do in your business and that kind of
stuff. So if anyone's listening to this and they've got a business, whether it's solopreneur or, a part of a larger business, and they want to work with you, and they're not in Western Australia, clearly the bigger corporations can go, hey, come and fly you over. Do you do Zoom for one-on-ones as well, or groups?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I think there's going to be people listening to this going, wow, I need it.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now that I've listened to some other, branding stuff, and nothing compares. This is so unique and so powerful. And for me was completely integrative, powerful, and like a homecoming. Yeah. And I've seen what it's been doing for others.
Yeah, great.
And it's more than just business.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And that's the key. It is personal work on yourself. And then it's accepting that and going, I'm going to run with this because this is my zone.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm going to fall back to when I'm under pressure, when I'm stressed. So people looking in will go, well, Kaye's Kaye. She is eclectic, that makes sense because Kaye's being Kaye.
Yeah.
And then everything's aligned, and then you're seen as being consistent and true to your word and authentic and genuine. And you'll attract the right people who love that and admire that and want to be a part of that.
Beautiful. Just a quick finish, Cath, in the name of what we're about, in the inner voice of knowing.
Yeah.
Some people call intuition, and I've explained previously why I don't.
Yeah.
In what ways has that inner voice played a part for you?
I delve into my inner voice all the time. And it was interesting walking the Camino. That's, I think, why some people find it so confronting, is because when you're walking so long, your mind's like screaming at you.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it can be. Mine was all right. And when you're under stress and pressure, it can come in and take over. But after a while, it goes, oh, bloody hell, I'm out of here. This is boring. Because repetitive walking day after day, 34, 36 days is boring. And then the true insights come in. So I guess the inner voice and knowing is understanding that you're not your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're not your mind.
Yeah.
So it's about saying, okay, mind, see you later. What does the observer of that mind, what does that inner voice of knowing really feel about this? And sometimes it can be answers that are surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had times where I've laid in bed and I've just had a resounding, if I'm thinking of doing something, no. I've had that a few times.
It can be pretty direct.
Yeah. And I meditate frequently and do yoga, and I've got my own personal practice.
Yeah.
And that's when I really tune in and can put the mind aside. It's a lifetime of clearing all the subconscious stuff that comes up. So it's just clearing that stuff that wants to divert your attention to take you away from the real stuff. And a lot of people on the Camino were diverted.
Mm-hmm.
Their attention was diverted and they were missing the opportunity of being there. And I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, present moment.
Because once their minds, a lot of people walk it on their phones or these days. So it's like, if we can get into that. And that's where the Camino is amazing, because it can be a really great reboot to get you back to you.
Yeah.
And help you put your phone away. And so you're more connected to you and that inner voice of knowing, and not the diversions and the distractions that the mind and the ego wants to whip you away to have fun with.
Love it, Kath. I could sit here and talk forever.
Yeah, me too.
And I think we will, because let's go and have lunch now. But thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I mean, I'm walking the Camino next year.
Yes.
So who knows, maybe I'll have you back before I go.
Yeah, great.
And we can talk about.
Give you tips.
Yeah, but it's also the journey of getting to the decision of the Camino. And then, as you say, the mind and coming to that present moment and inner voice. I think there's a whole lot more that we could talk about.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. And congratulations on the podcast. It's amazing.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Join me on my next episode. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe by clicking on the plus button if you're on Apple, or like and follow on Spotify. Rate and review. And please share Inner Voice of Knowing with your friends.